There were 3 Cars movies that came out before Incredibles 2. Really, Pixar? Really? I mean, come on. Gotta get your priorities straight. What up, my Nimians, and welcome back to Nim TV. I am your host, NimishNib2299, and we're back with another movie review. This time we're reviewing one of my most anticipated movies of the year, Incredibles 2, Pixar's latest film. Obviously a sequel to The Incredibles, which came out 14 years ago. Finally, we're getting the sequel. This is the one Pixar movie that people have been wanting a sequel out of. A lot of the other ones were pretty good movies and stuff, but this is the one that everybody said was like, oh yeah, this is the one that should get a sequel. This is the one that deserves a sequel. This is the one that is set up in a way where it could more easily have a sequel. And I kind of agreed with that for the longest time, and finally, they did it. I think a lot of the reasons why it took so long, though, is because they wanted to take their time to perfect it, to make sure it was good. They didn't want to disappoint, because they knew how much people wanted it, and so they really took their time on it. And Brad Bird, the director, really made sure that he crafted something good. And did he craft something good? I think so. I think this is a pretty decent sequel, actually. I wouldn't say it's as good as the first, but it's kind of hard to do that. I think the first was a really good movie that had a really interesting story and really played with a lot of the interesting family dynamics and had some interesting family drama stuff in it. This one does as well, but I don't think it plays the family drama side of it as well as the first movie did. This one is better in some ways in terms of action. It's got better action. It's got probably more action. This movie is action-packed, and all the action scenes are very exhilarating, especially this one, like, chase scene. There's a runaway train, and Elastigirl is trying to chase it down on her motorcycle, and, like, how the motorcycle chase, first off, is pretty great, and how she's, like, using her powers in a lot of fun, creative ways to, like, do this. It's so much fun. I loved that. And all the action scenes are pretty good. Pretty great. But yeah, family dynamic stuff like the first one. A lot of the big thing about the first one is the superhero thing is sort of a backdrop to this whole family drama. This whole intense family drama that's going on. This one, the family drama elements aren't as big, because the first one, there was a lot of big things where, like, family members are sort of fighting and arguing, and, like, the two, Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl, like, they're sort of struggling in their marriage in a way, like, where they're, like, maybe, they're having problems in their marriage, and that's a pretty serious thing. This one, that movie already kind of had that, so obviously it would be weird if this movie sort of redid that, but this movie doesn't have anything as major like that. There's sort of this interesting role reversal, though, where it's like, Elastigirl goes out to actually do stuff, whereas Mr. Incredible is the one who has to stay home and take care of the kids, and there's a lot of funny things going on with that, and him struggling to do it because that's not what he's used to doing. He's used to being the one who goes out to work to make money while she stays home with the kids, and it's like, you get a lot of fun stuff with that, and then on top of that, Jack is suddenly developing powers, and he's like, has to deal with that, because that's obviously a big thing, because he has a million different powers, and he doesn't know how to keep him under control, so that's a lot of fun. The basic plot behind this movie, with, like, the villain character and stuff, has to do with the attempt to re-legalize superheroes. So obviously we know first Incredibles, the whole big thing is superheroes were made illegal, and they have to sort of deal with that because of that. And then after the events of that one, there's a lot of people out there who are like, hey, superheroes can really do some good. Maybe we should get rid of that law. Maybe we should change the law so it's legal again. and sort of the Parr family, or Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl and Frozone are sort of taken into this like business, which this big businessman who's all about his life goal is to sort of do that, is to bring back the superheroes. And so they have this whole plan of how they're going to do it, how they're going to sort of show events from the superheroes' perspectives, to show them that superheroes aren't the ones who cause all the damage and stuff. So that goes interestingly enough, and you get a lot of interesting debates about the legal ramifications of a lot of things that are actually fairly interesting. I found actually quite an interesting topic to discuss. Obviously, superheroes aren't real in our world, but hey, if they were, how legal would that be? Here's some interesting discussion on that, I guess. It's kind of interesting. I liked that. One thing, though, all in all, the movie's pretty great. Really good animation, and then just a lot of the action is really, really well done. Good lighting, really good lighting. All that stuff just packed into this one good movie. Really fun. Definitely go see it. One big thing I have a problem with in this movie is the villain character. The villain character is pretty bland. The villain is nowhere near as good as Syndrome. Syndrome, I thought, was a really good villain, well set up. First off, that beginning thing with him being set up when he was a kid, he was Buddy, he was the big fan of Mr. Incredible, and then he later on becomes the villain, trying to sort of, make himself a superhero, that whole thing. Really, he was a really good, well set up, well realized villain. This one, the villain's just kind of there, and there's a really obvious setup, which is like a really obvious sort of twist of who the villain is, where you don't know who the villain's real identity is, and then eventually you find out who it really is, and it's pretty obvious. I'm not gonna lie, pretty obvious. You're gonna be able to tell right pretty easily. But still, despite the fact that the villain is not that great, the action scenes are really great. All the other characters are really great, and you still feel like, even though it's been this long, you feel like there's still a good sense of understanding of who the characters are and how they would act and all that kind of stuff based on the first movie. Obviously, it is directed by the same guy who directed the first movie. It is still directed by Mr. Bird. Brad Bird, that's what his name is. I had to think of his first name for some reason. Still directed by him. He does great with this. He understands the characters. He understands it. Obviously, he's the one who directed the original. Worthy sequel. I don't think it's as good as the original, the first one, which is probably my favorite, one of my favorites, if not my favorite Pixar movie. But this one is definitely a worthy sequel. One of the better Pixar sequels, definitely. I mean, the only good Pixar sequels other than this are I guess Toy Story 2 and Toy Story 3, and maybe Cars 3. I didn't actually see Cars 3, so I don't know. Cars 2 sucked. Finding Dory, not so great. Monsters University, that's not really a sequel, that's a prequel, but nah. So this is probably definitely one of the better Pixar sequels, definitely. Pretty great. Definitely go see it. Everyone's going to want to go see this. Everybody loves the first Incredibles. Who's not going to love this one? Who's not going to want to go see Incredibles 2? I mean, come on. But anyways, that is about all. Those are my basic thoughts on the movie. Loved it a lot. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.
The gents and ladies, I spoil loyal fans. I foil your plans and leave fluids leaking like oil pans. My coiled hands around this microphone are lethal. One thought in my cerebral is deeper than a jeep full of people. MCs are feeble. I came to cause some pandemonium. Battle a band of phony MCs, a stand-alone one. Imitator, intimidator, stimulator, simulator of data, eliminator. There's never been a greater